the man with the program, the plan to sell you your dreams at the auctions you'd want to be at. It is Charles Stewart. Good to have you with me. You've just come off the New York art sales and the Geneva jewelry sales. I mean, they were on fire, but they weren't lit up as they were supposed to be in New York. Would you say there's a bit of a slowdown in global luxury art because there's been a shakedown in the market overnight with Louis Vuitton and Hermes?
Well, actually, I would characterize the art sales in New York last week as showing strong resilience at the very top end. Across the major auction houses, there was about $1.8 billion of art sold dollars in a week, with very high sell-through rates and many records set, and good strength at the very high end.
As you look into the world now, we're dealing with high inflation, you've got jewelry, you've got hard luxury, soft luxury, cars, and art. Where are your clients, the real super rich, the unique buyers, where are they focusing their lens in 2023?
What we've seen have particular appeal is anything that has got real scarcity, work that is fresh to market or an object. And we see this across categories. It might be a painting. Last week in Geneva, we set a record for a very rare Daytona, a Rolex Daytona John Player Special that sold for 2.2 million Swiss francs against an estimate of 600 to 1.2 million, and quite an extensive bidding battle. So things that are fresh and scarce have particular appeal, and we see that time and again across categories.
Look, a great deal of our audience, and we've built, of course, shameless plug, we built the Bloomberg Subdial Watch Index. That's down 32%. That's not exactly your market now, is it? But these are 50 of the most traded pre-owned luxury watches. So there are some of the, the pricier names in there. That's down 32%. Talk to the audience here and beyond in terms of the watch market and your outlook. There's the chart in terms of the performance, as you can see above you.
Yeah, I mean, you see a run-up in prices, which reflects that bubble period that we all saw, where there was, whether it was a combination of crypto and fiscal policy, global easy money flowing into categories. It certainly included watches, also cars and other collectible categories, but really only a portion of those categories. So we saw certain newer watch models, enormous demand. The primary markets disappeared. You couldn't even get on the list to get one of these watches. And that has retreated somewhat, although the secondary prices in many cases are still far above the primary market price point.
When I've been here about sort of 5-6 times in the past 12 months, and I've managed to have been able to get into the Museum of Islamic Art. I'm looking at Qatar, I'm looking at Saudi Arabia, I'm looking at the UAE. There is this momentum to build more art destinations. What's the scale of the budget that's going to be deployed, let's say, by these 3 countries for your market in terms of the art sales? Because I presume that's a big portion of what these 3 nations will buy. How important is the Gulf to underpinning the auction world for you?
Well, there's no question that the Gulf in total represents one of the most important regions for collecting across categories in the world today. Very active, growing, reflective of all the exciting things that are happening here. And in Qatar in particular, I think now that we are in this post-World Cup period where there's been so much focus and attention given over many years to the highly successful event, the attention now turns to the future. I think that art and culture is clearly an enormous opportunity for Qatar. You see the existing museums, the traffic and the appeal of them. There's more to come. And I think what will separate Doha from cities anywhere in the world, not just in the Gulf, will be the quality and importance of the collections that will be unveiled over time and showcased in museums.
I mean, there's as much appetite here from impressionists of Monet. There's about bringing art to this region from the world, from the outside world. Have you seen much of that evidence in the past auctions that you've delivered? Has the Gulf been more active than usual? I mean, China, just benchmark for me, who is the most active in these art auctions at the moment globally?
Well, the largest overall market is certainly the U.S., both in terms of buyers and sellers. And when we look at Asia, what we've seen is a reemergence of buyers post the longer lockup periods in China in particular, but also an expansion of interest coming out of Asia from outside of China, whether that is Southeast Asia. We've had our first auctions in Singapore in 15 years and opened offices in Korea and elsewhere in Southeast Asia. We've just reopened and opened a new office in Shanghai last week. So we are quite focused on Asia, but there's no doubt that incremental buying is coming from this region. Qatar specifically has been an active participant and buyer, very sophisticated on a global basis for many years. But we're seeing that increasing across the region and broadening out beyond just the perhaps sovereign goals to include private collectors as well, which has been exciting to see.
Where are we on the car side in the region? I mean, I'm based in Dubai, and in the DIFC, we've got some beautiful cars on display outside your offices. How important is this market to the acceleration, let's say, and the growth in the car auction market for you? I think we're showing some of the images up here of some of the ones that are coming up.
Yeah, that was the car on the screen actually is a Bugatti, which is interesting because we sold that in Paris in February. It was a new car, and so it was one of the new special Chiron models, and it sold at auction for close to 10 million euros. And this is well above the primary market price, except that there's a waiting list for the primary market price. So I think it speaks to the interaction between primary and secondary markets, which is an interesting angle for us. We collaborated directly with Bugatti to bring that particular car to market. But to answer your question, cars, we have seen enormous strength in that category, over the last years and continuing strongly into this year. We sold nearly $1 billion of classic and high-end collector cars last year, including the highest value car ever sold, which was a 1955 Uhlenhaut Coupe, which sold for $145 million, Mercedes. And clearly there is significant interest and significant collections here in Qatar and in the Gulf more broadly.
Now, I can only presume at $150 million, I don't know, you tell me. I know that you're digging deeper into the credit market. You are providing credit. I didn't realize this. Sotheby's are providing credit to buyers. Who needs your credit? What I'm more interested in, how much of a premium can you charge to the banks?
We have been in the business of lending against high-value art and objects for 3 decades. It's been a very good business for us. These objects, by their nature, are illiquid, and there are times when it makes sense for people to unlock liquidity by borrowing against the value of that collateral. It's something that we're uniquely positioned to do compared to banks because we obviously have great insight into the correct values to assign for the collateral. So it's been a very good business for us, and it's one that's increased significantly over the last 18 months as credit has become scarcer and liquidity perhaps is at a higher premium than it has been for the last years.
Can I push a little bit? What size is the business?
We have well over $1 billion in loans today, and it's growing significantly. So I think you'll see that continue to grow in the years ahead.
And is it your average? I mean, is it your average billionaire that comes to you for credit, or what kind of client comes to you for credit?
It really is collectors who, as I said, have enormous value. It makes sense for them, whatever their personal circumstance might be, to borrow against that specific collateral. These are types of people who obviously have usually multiple bank relationships, but because we can move quickly, because we understand the value of the collateral in a unique, invaluable way, people turn to us to use their collections to unlock liquidity.
Now, we caught up a little bit earlier on television, and we talked about the Freddie Mercury auction that is coming up. And I think it's one of those things when you say sort of David Bowie, a lot of people in this room remember David Bowie, and a lot of people in here remember Freddie Mercury. Bowie's art collection on the first night raised, what, $30 million?
Yes.
This is more than art. This is history and art. What's going to fly? What is going to be the golden ticket There he is standing astride. I was actually at that concert at home. But
You're dating yourself, I think.
I don't mind. I'm vintage. But what's going to fly from Freddie's collection?
Well, first of all, I would say that we're thrilled to bring the collection of Freddie Mercury to market. It will be sold in London in September. There's well over 1,000 objects and collectibles and things he owned, his personal possessions, which will be really exciting. We haven't unveiled all of what they are, so that's coming over the course of the summer. One thing I know we have announced are the original lyrics to "We Are the Champions." So I'll be curious to see who needs to have that in their collection. But we've seen enormous interest on our website already in this collection. And I think it speaks to the convergence we're seeing across luxury, lifestyle, pop culture, art, and experience. And Freddie Mercury, obvious icon in those regards. We're also bringing the collection of Paul Newman to market in a few weeks' time as well. We have a very cool Rolex Daytona that belonged to Paul Newman, well worn, and on the back his wife Joanne Woodward inscribed, "Paul, drive very slowly, Joanne." So again, a unique, iconic timepiece that we'll have shortly.
To win those collections, in other words, to choose Sotheby's, to undertake this portfolio of sales for Newman, for Freddie Mercury, how important is the personal relationship in winning that business? What is it that turns the key if people say, yep, I'll take Sotheby's on this?
Yeah, it's always a question of trust, of personal relationship. Obviously, you need to bring the right proposal, the right marketing plan. I think that people...
Is commission honestly, is commission a key part of the discussion?
Absolutely, it's a consideration, but what matters much more than the commission is how well do we sell it? Because if you sell it for 25% more than one might expect, that far outweighs, the commission. So it comes down to the marketing plan and the conviction that you have. I think the fact that we are so global is one of the things that sets us out. We have offices and galleries in 40 countries. We had bidding from 145 countries last year. And the markets in which we operate are, in fact, incredibly global. The Freddie Mercury collection will be a good example of that.
Do you think that will send more in the room than online? Just talk the audience through in terms of that COVID boom that we had online. Has that dissipated?
We're seeing a generational shift there. I mean, no surprise that younger people are, in fact, more comfortable bidding online and on their app. 90% of all of the bids that we took across our auctions last year were either online or on our app. But for the highest value objects, and certainly art, like the New York collections last week, the bidding was either in the room or by telephone.
How much of it was Gen Z? I mean, never mind my generation. I've dated myself, so I'm past the point. But how do you get Gen Z into the auction room? How do you get them online? How do you capture them?
Well, I think Gen Z is interested in things that are unique. In a world of homogeneity, how do you stand out? How do you think about self-expression? Finding unique objects, whether it's a 1945 Cartier bracelet or a Freddie Mercury collectible, is not something you can get anywhere. That brings interest into our auction rooms. We see that over and over. The digital first engagement obviously is a good way to attract Gen Z as well. And then lastly, investing in new categories, sports collectibles. Game-worn sports collectibles is a huge trend, and we have set and broken our own records many times in shoes, game-worn jerseys.
Is Jordan just king of that? I mean, what was the jersey? 1998, $10 million for a jersey worn in 1998. Is he just king of the trade?
That was a record for a game-worn jersey, $10.1 million. We've sold others. There was a Kobe Bryant jersey from I think 2007 or 8 that sold for $7 or so million. The Diego Maradona Hand of God jersey from the 1986 World Cup sold for 6 or 7. So there's other things in that class. But yes, for now, the Jordan is king of the game-worn collectibles, both jersey and shoes, I might add.
Okay, let's see where Freddie's trainers go at the auction. Charles, thank you very much for being at Qatar 2023, Qatar Economic Forum. Charles Stewart.
Thank you for having me.